Welcome into SportsZone All Access on this Thursday, November 20th. Ian Sachs and Kelsey Dennehy here at the KELOLAND Plus Digital Studios. And Kelsey, we're going to be looking ahead a lot to the upcoming days for the college scene, talking football and volleyball. And we'll start with college football. SDSU playing this week. USD has its bye week. We'll get into kind of the schedule quirk for the Coyotes in just a minute. But we'll start with SDSU, and the Jackrabbits go on the road to North Dakota this week in a big game for the Jackrabbits, one that feels like a must-win.
If there is any lick of chance that this Jackrabbits team makes the postseason, it's if they win this game. They have to win this game, and really I'm going to say they need to win it convincingly. It needs to be a full performance from the Jackrabbits, and it's something we haven't seen in a while. They're on a 4-game losing streak, and Chase Mason still out. He's practicing now, so there might be some hope that he plays this weekend, but even still, that's a kid who's been injured for the past month, and so that's a tricky thing to jump right back into.
You mentioned that if they have any chance of making the playoffs, they need to win. They dropped to number 22 in the rankings this week amid a 4-game losing streak. First 4-game skid for the Jackrabbits since 2011. So we're talking about something that this program has not seen in a decade and a half nearly. And not only to get into the playoffs, but just to have a little pride to end the regular season on some type of a positive note. Take the playoff implications away from this game. They need to find some positive heading into the potential offseason, heading into, obviously, the playoffs, should they get in. But just heading into next year, you cannot lose this season on a 5-game losing streak to end the season. They're sitting 3-4 in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. Did you think that we'd be sitting and saying that they're under 500 with 1 game left in the regular season in conference play? I certainly did not expect this. It's just the utter way that this season has fallen apart for the Jackrabbits, where now they need, as you said, need to win. And not just win, but hopefully convincingly in order to have any chance of getting into the playoffs. Just what has happened this year?
It's mind-blowing. And you don't want to put blame on injury because at the end of the day, Coach Dan Jackson says it every week that they should have guys ready to step up. But the drop-off from their original starting lineup has been steep. And it's clearly been noticeable. They've been out of a lot of people. We've listed them every week. And I don't know what else there is to say about it. But also, I think it also plays into the fact that they're just not playing clean football. They're missing tackles. They're missing blocks. And when you do that consistently, you're not going to have good results. And so I think it's a mixture of that. But the lack of discipline that we saw against Southern Illinois, and that really the first half, but that first quarter especially, was jarring.
Yeah, it certainly was. The muffed kickoff leading to 7 points for the Redbirds seconds later speaks to it well. And you were at a loss for words a minute. Let's hear what Dan Jackson
knew it was going to be a challenge and not easy right away. But no, the players understand that there's a standard that way, and they want to uphold it. And to me, it's a little bit more about just how we play. You know, that's what I want to see, is that we are playing South Dakota State football week in and week out.
Playing South Dakota State football week in and week out. He said it right there, and they're playing anything but the last couple of weeks.
And give Coach Jackson some credit. He's in his inaugural year as a head coach here, and we can't forget the fact that he really had to craft a brand new team coming into this season, a brand new coaching staff. And so I think that's what made it so remarkable for their 7-0 start. But then as soon as things start to turn sour, it's like the tide changes. And we can't really do that. We need to look at the whole picture and say, hey, listen, like, he really is doing his very best, and he's still a first-year head coach. So it's hard, and it's hard because South Dakota State has been good for so long, but clearly there were some underlying things going on that need addressed, and he's trying to do that, it seems like.
Well, Kelsey, we talked about it even amid that 7-game winning streak, the third down conversion rate being such a struggle for the Jackrabbits, and a couple of other things that winning kind of masked, and now everything just seems to be exposed all at the same time, which is why the Jacks have been struggling recently. And there were a lot of storylines and a lot of buzz around the program in the offseason after the leaving of Jimmy Rogers and the hiring of Dan Jackson. Former players telling all the current players, hey, stay. South Dakota State's a good place to be. And now you know that if the season does end with a 5-game losing streak, there are going to be even more questions this coming off season, and it's going to be loud. There's no question about it. It's going to be a loud offseason for the Jackrabbits, no matter how the season ends, whether they win at North Dakota this week and get into the playoffs, win at North Dakota and don't get into the playoffs, or lose at North Dakota and don't get into the playoffs.
There's really a lot of options going on here.
No doubt about it that it's going to be an offseason of questions for the Jacks. But, of course, a long time before we get to that. They play Saturday, and then we'll see what happens. The selection show on Sunday. Now, one team that has its attention already turned to the selection show is USD. The Coyotes done for the regular season. They have their bye the final week of the regular season. A big-time schedule quirk here where they play 12 straight weeks to start the year, then get the bye the final week. And it's almost like, should they get into the playoffs? We'll discuss their playoff candidacy in a minute. But if they do get in, though they won't get a first-round bye, they kind of do get a first-round bye with the bye the final week of the regular season.
Ian, it is, and I forgot too, it makes their last 3 wins that much more impressive. They upset 2 ranked teams and then beat another ranked team, and they haven't had a break. They're dealing with guys who are banged up with health stuff as much as any other team, and they've really fought through it, and we've seen them grow a lot this year, and it is really safe to say they're playing their best football now, and I don't think either of us would have said that would be the case just a month and a half ago.
No, you always hear coaches say, hey, we want to be playing our best football at the end of the season and heading into playoff time, and that's exactly what this Coyote team has done. It has not been pretty all season long, specifically starting with that loss to Lamar week 2, and that kind of raised some questions about, okay, where is this team? Then they play NDSU, who's the number 1 team in the country, and they get blown out, pushed around in that game. The questions really started to surge around this Coyote program, and credit to first-year head coach Travis Johansson, the job that he's been able to do to get this team to mold around and play its best football at the end. It's a great job by him and the coaching staff and the players to stick with it and say, hey, the season might not look the way that we wanted it to, a team that started, as one of the top teams in the FCS rankings, but we figured it out. We figured something out. We figured out a way to get in the win column, and that's all that matters.
It really is, and it's a credit to really everybody a part of the program, because when you have such a turn of tides, it's everybody involved in the program, and I don't just mean coaches and players. I mean the physical trainers, the staff, the people who are filling up the water bottles. Everybody's bought in, and it shows. And that is a credit to a lot of different people, but also just Travis Johansson really, really pitching that buy-in and getting it from everyone.
Well, let's hear from the Coyote head man.
Our players are so dang resilient. They refuse to lose. They have an incredible belief and will to win football games.
An incredible belief and will to win football games, and that's exactly what they've done, and the resiliency of this team to figure it out, and even evidence in their last game at Southern Illinois to withstand a 5 overtime game and come out with the win on the road.
That's crazy.
A 3rd straight ranked win to end the regular season, 4 straight ranked games to end the regular season, and picking up wins in the last 3. So now the Coyotes just wait and see, hoping that what they have put on tape and their resume will speak for itself. And if the committee is looking at a team that's playing its best football as of late, the Coyotes are right up there with anyone else.
I think it's safe to say if SDSU is still a part of the conversation with the losing skid that they've had, then it is more than safe to say that USD should be a part of this playoff conversation. Not to mention the fact that the Missouri Valley Football Conference is one of the more challenging conferences to play in the FCS. So that holds some weight as well. Strength of schedule holds weight. And while we saw some struggles from USD at the beginning of the season, we can't forget that they just pulled out 3 ranked wins with no break. 0. They did not have a break. So I think that is definitely a part of the conversation.
Yeah, that's a great point. You always hear the coaches in the Valley talk about the strength of the Valley and how tough it is week in and week out, and you're playing a ranked team every single week. The Coyotes, examples of that, and they found success at the end of the season. So credit to them. They'll find out the selection show coming up this Sunday at 11 a.m. Central Time. We'll see if the Coyotes are in, if the Jacks are in, and where they're going, what their playoff push will look like. Well, it's playoff time for college volleyball. We'll move over to the volleyball court, talk Summit League volleyball coming up next, and then NSIC in just a little bit. You're watching SportsZone All Access here on KELOLAND Plus. Welcome into SportsZone All Access, our second segment of the day, and we teased it a little bit. We're going to talk Summit League volleyball now. The bracket has been revealed as the regular season came to a close this past Tuesday night, and 2 familiar teams right at the top of the bracket. SDSU, the number 1 seed, USD, the number 2 seed. Both of them have buys into the semifinals. They'll play their first championship matches on Monday. Doubleheader there up in Brookings at First Bank and Trust, USD at 3, SDSU at 6. But the tournament gets underway on Sunday with the 4-5 and the 3-6 quarterfinal matches. St. Thomas, the 3, they'll take on Omaha in the first match, and then NDSU and Denver in the 4-5 for the opportunity to advance to play the Jackson Coyotes, and then the championship on Tuesday at 6 p.m. up at First Bank and Trust Arena. Kelsey, should be a fun one. Last year, it came down to USD and SDSU, and should the bracket hold serve, looking that way once again.
I was going to say, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, but right now, it's very obvious SDSU is the team to beat. Most significantly because nobody has beat them in the Summit League. And so this is going to be interesting because not only is a postseason run imminent, is expected from SDSU, but here, you can't get caught off guard. Like, you've got to be on and ready to go because you've got a target on your back, and they have for a while. However, postseason just means more. It's tourney time, and teams really tend to turn it up when the implications get hot.
Well, the second straight year that SDSU is the top overall seed, they run through the regular season this year undefeated. First time a Summit League team has gone undefeated in the regular season since 2019. They closed it out with a win over North Dakota on Tuesday night. And the Jackrabbits, you mentioned it, they have that target on their back. They had it after their success last year where they were the number 1 seed. And now they have an even bigger target and even more pressure on them because last year they got upset by USD in the championship match. Now this year, can they seal the deal and sweep the Summit League in both the regular season and tournament championships?
And look, it wouldn't surprise me if the championship does come down to USD, SDSU. USD does have a very good chance of upsetting SDSU again. Here's why. SDSU has beat them both times, but the second time it went to 5 sets, and SDSU got off to a really slow start, and I think if USD is able to continue to capitalize and punch them in the mouth from the jump, that's something that it couldn't necessarily go their way. It's hard to beat a team twice, let alone 3 times and in a championship. So it'll be interesting. Obviously, both of those teams have to make it to the championship to face each other, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's how it goes.
Yeah, you mentioned that how they beat the Coyotes in both season meetings, and the last one being a 5-set thriller. Remember, the Coyotes were the team that knocked them off last year in the championship. The Coyotes were the 3 seed last year, and very similar, SDSU won both in the regular season, and one of them was a 5-setter in Brookings. Same as this year. It was a 5-setter.
Deja vu.
It was a 5-setter in Brookings. So you think that's creeping into their back of their minds a little bit? I would certainly say so when you think about where the Jacks are mentally throughout this season and heading into the tournament where You know that the pressure is on them. They're on their home court now. All eyes are going to be on what this SDSU team can do. Just 3 losses total on the season, 22-3, 16-0 in Summit League play. But all that kind of means nothing if you can't seal the deal. 2 more wins against Summit League teams, and then it's a complete season.
It's funny because I think back to when we talked to Coach Georgalis at the beginning of the season, before they even started non-con, and he told us that they were playing October, November volleyball that early in the season, and we said, that's crazy. And he said, I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. Right. And so to see how the season has played out for the Jacks, and the fact that they're playing even better than they have been in the fall when we spoke with him, it is really mind-blowing to me and gives me an inkling that this team is special. Like we've seen it already, but postseason is different. Postseason's different, and I think we're going to see a whole nother level to this Jacks squad.
Well, they play their first match on Monday, and another team that does as well, USD, the 2 seed in the Summit League. They closed the regular season with a win over NDSU to finish 12-4 in the Summit League. Now, keep in mind, 2 of those losses coming to SDSU, so 12-2 against the rest of the league. And the Coyotes, they're a program that has had a lot of success throughout the history of the Summit League and looking to continue that once again. You know that they'd love to go up to Brookings and come away with a championship on the Jacks home court. This
is a gritty group. We talked about it with them against SDSU. They start really hot, and they start really hot in the majority of their matches. It's just a matter if they can play all the way through. And we've seen that with a little bit of tougher opponents that they kind of lose their edge a little bit towards the end there, and that's what costs them. But they are such a composed, fun group to watch on the floor. Literally, I don't think I've seen any of their players on the floor not smiling in any circumstance. They're always locked in, but they're always just happy to be there and be playing. And I think that helps them a lot when they're playing tougher opponents.
Yeah, and Kelsey, that's all a great point. And they're a team that's been playing their best volleyball as of late. I mentioned those 2 losses outside of playing SDSU. They were in their first 3 Summit League matches, so they started 1-2 in the league, which means that since then, they've gone 11-2, those 2 losses being to SDSU. So outside of that, they haven't lost to a Summit League team in a long time, since the beginning of October. October 4th was their last loss to a team not named the SDSU Jackrabbits. So the Coyotes playing their best volleyball as of late. We talked about it on the football field, and the same case can be made for the volleyball court as well.
Yeah, I don't know what cereal they're feeding them in the facilities, but I want some of that. That sounds awesome. But they've been playing really strong, composed volleyball, and I think we forget to. Well, maybe it's just me. I forget that this is also a rivalry. SDSU USD is a massive rivalry. So for these 2 teams to be inherently the most competitive teams coming into this tournament, to potentially see another rivalry matchup where USD has just as good a chance of winning as SDSU does, is really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to this tournament.
All I know is sign me up for a 5-set thriller Tuesday night in Brookings. I'll be all for that. No matter who comes out on top, give me a championship 5th set. That's all that I want between these 2. Well, should be a lot of fun in Brookings the next couple of days. Now let's move over to the NSIC volleyball, that tournament underway, and we'll look at how the bracket's going there. You're watching SportsZone All Access. Welcome back into SportsZone All Access. Well, we talked Summit League volleyball, that tournament getting underway on Sunday. The NSIC tournament got underway this past week, and 2 local teams in action. One still in action, one not. USF picking up a win over Minnesota State on the road, a 5-set thriller there, 3-2. So the 5th-seeded Cougars are on to the semifinals. They'll play top seed and now host Concordia St. Paul. Meanwhile, Northern State falling at Wayne State in 4 sets. And Kelsey, we'll start with USF. A big win, knocking off a ranked Mavericks team to advance on the road, and USF volleyball playing some of its best volleyball as of late.
It's one of the most historic wins for USF. It's a big upset for them, and it really went back and forth all game. And so for them to hold on and be able to kind of edge out Minnesota State is really good. And I'm excited to see them play Concordia St. Paul because of their performance against Minnesota State. And we'll see if they can have a similar match against them.
Yeah, USF winners of 10 straight. They're up to 20-9 for the season, which means that when this win streak started, they were sitting at 10-9, a 500 team. And
not anymore.
And they are just peaking at the right time. And that's exactly what you want. We keep talking about it.
I was going to say, we say it every time, but it's true. That's how it goes. The best teams, the teams that end up winning, are the teams that are playing their best fill-in-the-blank sport at this point in the season.
Yeah, it may not be the best team that advances and wins. It may be the hottest team, and that's exactly what USF is. But they face a tough test now in Concordia St. Paul. That matchup, the second semifinal on Friday night at 7:30 up in the Twin Cities. The first matchup will be St. Cloud and Wayne State. Wayne State picking up a 3-1 win over Northern State this past week, and that marked the end of the Wolves season. The Wolves program that was ranked for much of the season, now bowing out in the quarterfinals.
And they're a good example of kind of falling off towards the end of the season, and that's what happens. They put up a good fight. They won the first set, and then Wayne State took control from there, and that was the end of that. So it's a tricky way to go out, but it happens.
The Wolves losing 3 of their final 4 in the regular season, and then losing to Wayne State in the first round, and a disappointing way for the season to end for Northern, who wraps up the year at 19-10 overall, 11-9 in the NSIC. So a tough one there for the Wolves. Well, it will do it for NSIC Volleyball Talk. We'll come back and preview what's on tap for tonight. You're watching SportsZone All Access. Welcome back into SportsZone All Access. Well, quickly before we go, let's take a look at what we have on tap for tonight. The high school volleyball state tournament begins with quarterfinals all day out in Rapid City. We'll have highlights and brackets from that action. Then West Lyon playing in the state championship game, so should be fun. They're about to kick off in just a couple of minutes. And then SDSU playing at the Pentagon, the women taking on Gonzaga. Should be a really fun one out there. 2 teams, 2 of the top mid-major teams in the country. Well, that'll do it for us today. She's Kelsey Dennehy. I'm Ian Sachs. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.